Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, conclusion, the perfection of renunciation. Text number 54 onwards. So Krishna is further speaking. Brahmbhuta prasannatma na shochati na kankshati samah sarveshu bhuteshu madbhaktim lavate param. One who is thus transcendently situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed towards every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. So, previous verse, he said, being purified by his intelligence and controlling the mind with determination, giving up the objects of sense gratification, being freed from attachment and hatred. And he gives so many conditions for control of the mind and the senses. And then he says, Brahmbhuta Prasannat, one who attains a stage of spiritual, transcendently situated. To the impersonalist, achieving the Brahmbhuta state, becoming one with the Absolute. So Brahmbhuta means becoming or merging in Brahmjyoti, becoming one with the Absolute is the last word. But for the personalist, the pure devotees, one has to go still further to become engaged in pure devotional service. This means that one who is engaged in pure devotional service to the Supreme Lord is already in a state of liberation called Brahmbhuta. So merging in Brahmjyoti, that is the stage of moksha, or liberation, oneness with the Absolute. Without becoming one with the Supreme, the Absolute, one cannot render service unto him. So becoming one with the Supreme what it means is becoming spiritual. Not like we are going to merge. A devotee never merges, never even want to merge. But he wants to be at the spiritual platform to serve Krishna properly. In the actual conception, there is no difference between the served and the servitor, yet the distinction is there in a higher spiritual sense. So one and different at the same time. In the material concepts of life, when one works for sense gratification, there is misery. But in the absolute world, when one is engaged in pure devotion service, there is no misery. The devotee in Krishna consciousness has nothing for which to lament or desire. Since God is full, a living entity who is engaged in God's service in Krishna consciousness becomes also full in himself. He is just like a river cleansed of all dirty water. Because a pure devotee has no thought other than Krishna, he is naturally always joyful. He does not lament for any material loss or aspire for gain, because he is full in the service of the Lord. He has no desire for material enjoyment, because he knows that every living entity is a fragmental part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, and therefore eternally a servant. He does not see in the material world someone as higher and someone as lower. Higher and lower positions are ephemeral, temporary. And a devotee has nothing to do with temporary appearances or disappearances. Means he is completely on the spiritual platform. Spiritual platform, of course, the shloka says, na shochati kankshati, means he does not have any material desires. Prabhupada used to say he doesn't even have a spiritual desire. All he wants to do is serve. No desire for any power or position. And he does not lament for any material loss. No shochati, no kankshati, means no shoch, no lamentation. no desire. But his desire is there to serve Krishna. That desire is there. And he is like Prabhupada, he has no desire for material enjoyment because he knows that every living entity is a fragmental part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, and therefore eternally a servant. So our position is of service. Our position is not of enjoyer. He does not see in the material world someone is higher and someone is lower. For him, everybody, this higher, lower position is based on body. He looks at everybody at soul, as a soul. In that stage of existence, the idea of becoming one with the Supreme Brahman and annihilating one's individuality becomes hellish. The idea of attaining the heavenly kingdom becomes a phantasmagoria. Phantasmagoria means flower in the sky, that kind of idea. And the senses are like serpents whose poisoned teeth are broken. As there is no fear of serpent with broken teeth, there is no fear from the senses when they are automatically controlled. The world is miserable for the materially infected person, but for a devotee, the entire world is as good as Vaikuntha or the spiritual sky. The highest personality in this material universe is no more significant than an ant for a devotee. But that doesn't mean highest personality. Maybe Indra, Lord Indra, that could be the highest personality in the material universe, or Brahmaji, or even if we come down to our planet, maybe President of America, President of Russia, President of China, maybe if in India, Modi ji. It's no more significant than an ant, but we don't go and say that to big people. Oh, you're like an ant, because this is what Prabhupada has written. First of all, we are not at that platform of Brahmbhuta Prasannatma stage. Secondly, we still respect the position of a person. If he is at that position, he or she, of being a ruler or a leader, means they have done plenty of pious activities in the previous lives, in this lives, and that's why Krishna has chosen them. And in older days, there used to be king. King used to be called Nripati, means the maintainer of all the, well, here it's in Nriya, but Prajapati also means everybody who's born in that kingdom. So that position is actually of God. The king was considered as servant of God or representative of God. So that way one should respect the leaders. Whether they're elected or selected or whatever way, they are leaders, one should respect. In heart, one can think of, oh, he's also servant of God. I'm also servant of God. But the position should be respected. Such a stage can be achieved by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, who reached pure devotion service in this age, who preached pure devotion service in this age. So if we follow Mahaprabhu's instructions and teachings, so we can come to the level of Brahmbhuta platform. And then Krishna says, see, first we talked about Brahmbhuta platform, and now he is coming to Bhakti. Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavanyashasmi tattvataha tato mam tattvato gyatva vishate tad anantaram. One can understand me as I am, as a Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by devotional service. And when one is in full consciousness of me, by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. So to know Krishna as he is completely, it is only possible by devotion service. Clearly he's saying that. Bhaktya mam abhijanati. He never said yogi mam abhijanati or karmi mam abhijanati. He clearly saying Bhaktya mam abhijanati. And when one is in full consciousness of me by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. Vishate tad anantaram. Clearly, it's very clear. What's the position of bhakti? The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and his plenary portions cannot be understood by mental speculation, nor by the non-devotees. If anyone wants to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he has to take to pure devotional service under the guidance of a pure devotee. Otherwise, the truth of the Supreme Personality of Godhead will always be hidden. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Naham Prakasha Sarvasya, he is not revealed to everyone. No one can understand God simply by erudite scholarship or mental speculation. Only one who is actually engaged in Krishna consciousness and devotional service can understand what Krishna is. University degrees are not helpful. So only one who is actually engaged in Krishna consciousness and devotional service can understand what Krishna is and who Krishna is. Actually, it so happened when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, I guess he was either visiting Allahabad or Banaras, and he was in his ashram. And if you all know of this person, Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya, a freedom fighter and a big scholar, he came to meet Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur to ask him a few questions. So Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, when Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya came, Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj told him, why don't you first go inside, and my cook is there and he's doing some services. Why don't you help him first? Pandit Madan Malviya, although he was surprised that what kind of sadhu is he? He's not answering my questions. But he respected Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and then he went inside and helped the cook. After maybe half an hour, 45 minutes, he came out, and Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj asked him, so what are your questions? And Pandit Madan Malviya said, all my questions are already answered. I don't need to ask any questions. So he did little bit service, and all his questions were answered by mercy of Krishna. Everything was enlightened. He was enlightened from within. So that's why Prabhupada says, only one who is actually engaged in Krishna consciousness and devotional service can understand what Krishna is. And in fact, more menial the service is in material terms, although in spiritual terms, every service is equal. But in material terms, more menial the service is, the faster the cleanliness of our heart takes place, faster our consciousness gets purified, faster we come to the understanding that I'm not the controller, I'm not the body, I'm not the controller, I'm not the enjoyer. So one should hanker for more and more menial service. Then one can get purified faster. One who is fully conversant with Krishna's science becomes eligible to enter into the spiritual kingdom, the abode of Krishna. Becoming Brahman does not mean that one loses his identity. Devotional service is there, and as long as devotional service exists, there must be God, the devotee, and the process of devotional service. Such knowledge is never vanquished, even after liberation. Liberation involves getting free from the concept of material life. In spiritual life, the same distinction is there, the same individuality is there, but in pure Krishna consciousness, the same distinction is there, but in pure consciousness. Here, our consciousness is impure, dirty. We think, I'm this body. So the I is there, which is Prabhupada translated it as false ego. But the ego remains. The real ego will remain. The real ego is, I am a servant of Krishna. So identity is there, individuality is there, but is pure. One should not mistakenly think that the word Vishate enters into me supports a monist theory that one become homogeneous with the impersonal Brahman. No, Vishate means that one can enter into the abode of the Supreme Lord in one's individuality to engage in his association and render service unto him. So Vishate, no, Prabhupada saying monist or impersonalist, they translate it as we merge into the body of Krishna. But if you look at the first line, it says Bhaktya Mam Abhijanati. Bhakti means two different people. Bhakti means devotion service. Devotion service means service with love. For love, we need two people. We cannot love Brahman or nothing or some energy. The person has to be there. So if by bhakti one can know him, how the perfection of bhakti is to merge into him. It doesn't make sense. So that's why even all these verses one has to learn from a bona fide spiritual master. So Vishate means that one can enter into the abode of the Supreme Lord and render service unto him. Prabhupada gives an example. For instance, a green bird enters a green tree not to become one with the tree, but to enjoy the fruits of the tree. So a green bird like parrot can enter a tree, but he doesn't merge into the tree, although he is green and the leaves are green. Impersonalists generally give the example of a river flowing into the ocean and merging. This may be a source of happiness for the impersonalist, but the personalist keeps his personal individuality like an aquatic in the ocean. We find so many living entities within the ocean if we go deep. Surface acquaintance with the ocean is not sufficient. One must have complete knowledge of the aquatics living in the ocean depths. So impersonalists, Mayavadis, Nirvisheshvadi, Nirvikarvadi, they give another example. The river is flowing and the final destination of the river is to merge into the ocean. Prabhupada here gives the example of aquatics or the fishes. Fishes are also in the river. And when the river merges into the ocean, the fishes, they just enjoy the ocean water. Another place Prabhupada gives the example of when the river merges into the ocean, but the molecules of water, they don't merge into the molecules of the water of ocean. They remain as they are. The individuality remains. So examples, some examples, they don't convey the right meaning. Because of his pure devotional service, a devotee can understand the transcendental qualities and the opulences of the Supreme Lord in truth. As it is stated in the 11th chapter, only by devotional service can one understand. The same is confirmed here. One can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead by devotional service and enter into his kingdom. After attainment of the Brahmbhuta stage of freedom from material conception, devotional service begins by one's hearing about the Lord. When one hears about the Supreme Lord, automatically the Brahmbhuta stage develops, and material contamination, greediness, and lust for sense enjoyment disappears. As lust and desires disappear from the heart of a devotee, he becomes more attached to the service of the Lord. And by such attachment, he becomes free from material contamination. So Brahmbhuta stage means that lust and desire disappears, angering disappears, lamentation disappears. And in that stage, then he becomes free from material contamination, then becomes more fixed up to serve. In that state of life, he can understand the Supreme Lord. This is the statement of Srimad Bhagavatam also. After liberation, the process of bhakti or transcendental service continues. The Vedanta Sutra confirms this. Aprayanat tatrapi hi drishtam. This means that after liberation, the process of devotional service continues. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, real devotional liberation is defined as a reinstatement of the living entity in his own identity, his own constitutional position. The constitutional position is already explained. Every living entity is a part and parcel, fragmental portion of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, his constitutional position is to serve. So right now we have forgotten, by engaging in devotional service, whether we have understood philosophy or not, or whether we are engaging or properly carrying out our devotional service or not, whether we are doing it maybe 1% with 1% devotion. Thing is, the devotional service is spiritual. We might not be completely at that stage. Krishna is completely spiritual. Devotional service is spiritual. Our consciousness could be impure. But by engaging in that service, slowly, our consciousness gets pure. It gets purified. And slowly, then the person comes to a stage of Brahmbhuta, and then Prabhupada says, after liberation, this service has never stopped. Actual liberation is getting free from misconception of life. So actual liberation is when we get free from this concept that I am this body, I am proprietor, controller, enjoyer. We are just servants of Krishna. That is liberation actually. That is liberation platform. And this chanting of the holy names. We talk about liberation in this verse and the previous verse. Haridas Thakur says that in Harinam Chintamani, that even if somebody is chanting at the stage of Nam Abhas, there are three stages, Nam Aparad, Nam Abhas, and Shuddha Nam. So even if somebody comes to the stage of Nam Abhas chanting, he is already liberated. Liberation is no big deal. To get Krishna Prem, one has to come to the stage of Shuddha Nam chanting. Because a devotee doesn't want to stop at liberation. It's why? What's the big deal about liberation? Let me come to the level of love for Krishna, pure devotional service. So liberation, at the stage of liberation, the real devotional service begins. So why? Not that we have to merge in Brahm Jyoti and then bhakti begins. No. What this means is at the stage of liberation, like last line Prabhupada says, getting free from misconceptions of life, that is actual liberation. So at that stage, when a person comes to, this is a stage of Brahmbhuta stage, that I'm not this material body. I'm a spirit soul. And that is when the real devotion service begins. Before that, we are under training. So we are training. We are just trying, struggling. So slowly, it will happen. By mercy of Prabhupada, everything will happen. Text 56. Sarva karmani api sada kurvano madvyapashvyaha mat prasadadavapnoti shashvatam padam avyayam. Though engaged in all kinds of activities, my pure devotee, under my protection, reaches the eternal and imperishable abode by my grace. Again, Bhaktya Mama Vijanati, and now he, Mat Prasadad Avapanoti. Mat Prasadad, my abode. When Krishna said Mat Prasadad means my abode, means the person is speaking, not Brahm Jyoti is speaking my abode. There is no abode for a Brahm Jyoti. The person is speaking. And what kind of abode is it? Shashvatam, eternal. Padam Avyayam means that which never perishes. The word Mad Vipashya means under the protection of the Supreme Lord. To be free from material contamination, a pure devotee acts under the direction of the Supreme Lord or his representative, the spiritual master. There is no time limitation for a pure devotee. He is always 24 hours a day, 100% engaged in activities under the direction of the Supreme Lord. To a devotee who is thus engaged in Krishna consciousness, the Lord is very, very kind in spite of all difficulties. He is eventually placed in the transcendental abode or Krishna Loka. He is guaranteed entrance there. There is no doubt about it. In that supreme abode, there is no change. Everything is eternal, imperishable, and full of knowledge. So one who is engaged in Krishna's service 24 hours, 100% surrendered and 100% engaged in activities of serving Krishna. To that devotee, so Prabhupada saying, in spite of all difficulties, he's eventually placed in the transcendental abode of Krishna Loka. Means that difficulties will be there. The testing part will be there. Just to elaborate on what Pramod Mohanty Prabhu asked the other day about a devotee is suffering. What happens? So there are many levels of this answer to this. When a fully surrendered or highly surrendered or a pure devotee goes through some trials and tribulations. So first of all, he doesn't have any karmic reaction. So he's not actually suffering. That we see that a person is suffering or some situations are difficult. Like Prahlad Maharaj, he was thrown from the top of the hill. Hiranyakashipu wanted to kill him. He was thrown under the feet of elephants. Nothing happened. He was thrown in a pit of snakes, poisonous snakes. The snakes became flower garlands for him. He was thrown in a pot of boiling oil, and the boiling oil cooled down as soon as it touched Prahlad Maharaj. Hiranyakashipu's sister, Holika, she got burned, although she had the boon of never getting burned by fire, and Prahlad Maharaj was saved. So there are many reasons for this. So when a pure devotee undergoes these so-called tribulations, it's not because of their karma. Its purpose is manifold. So one is Krishna wants to prove to the world that a devotee of mine never leaves me, even if he undergoes so many tribulations. And at the same time, I don't leave him either. I'm always there to protect him. At the same time, this becomes a deterrent for the people who have no faith in Bhakt or Bhakti or Bhagwan. So they kind of filter out. They go away. Oh, even in Bhakti we have to suffer so much. Why come perform Bhakti? So that's also act as a filtration process. For devotees who are not fully surrendered, maybe they are surrendered 1% or maybe whatever 80%, whatever. For them, these tribulations act as purifying agent. They have some faith, so they undergo these situations, these problems. So they realize there is nothing but Krishna who can give me shelter, who can give me protection. There's no one. That's what once Prabhupada asked his disciples, do you know what is the definition of humility? And disciples, obviously when Prabhupada is asking, they would rather hear from Prabhupada. So they said, no, Prabhupada then explained, humility is when we come to the conclusion to the conclusion that nothing in this world, not nor my money, nor my bodily strength, nor my mental strength, not my relatives, not my friends, not the government, not any of my schemes can save me. Only Krishna can. That is humility. So the devotees, when struggling devotees like us, when we go through these tribulations, and then slowly, we come to the conclusion that nobody can save us except Krishna, except Krishna's lotus feet. So we have to cling on, hang on to the lotus feet of Krishna. Then we'll be saved. Otherwise, nobody can save. For karmis, they work according to their intelligence. They do all sorts of tricks or arrangements to get them out of any difficult situation. But again, the difficult situation comes. Padam padam yatve padam na tesham. This in this material world, every step there is danger. So throughout our lives, or the lives who are not in devotion, so they throughout their life they're just struggling, working very hard to make sure, okay, this problem is there. Okay, they spend time, money, energy, and everything to sort out this problem. And then the new problem comes. Then the whole energy is diverted towards the money is diverted towards that. Then the new problem comes, and then the whole attention is towards that. But for a devotee, his attention is only towards Krishna. He says, Mare Krishna Rakhe Krishna Mare ke. So that is all these situations are there to increase our surrender to Krishna, to increase our faith in Krishna, to increase our devotion service, to make it more and more dense, make it more concentrated, with feelings, with emotions, with prayers, with heartfelt chanting coming from the core of our heart. Krishna, there is nobody else who can save me. When Draupadi Maharani, when she cried like that, when she was getting disrobed, first she looked at all the 5 husbands. Nobody helped her. Then she looked at Dhritarashtra or Dronacharya, Kripacharya, Bhishma. Nobody got up to save her. So till that time, even Krishna didn't come. But when she tried to grab onto her sari herself, but Dushasana was way too strong, way too powerful for her. And she had to just let go of sari, and then both hands she surrendered. And Krishna appeared right away, without a moment's delay. So this is not that Draupadi Maharani is not a pure devotee. She is a pure devotee. She was a person associate of Krishna. But this was just to prove that first a devotee, whenever he goes through anything, he just surrenders unto Krishna. And Krishna is there to protect. Krishna might not protect our body. Krishna might not protect our reputation. Maybe we'll get insulted. Maybe body will get torn up in pieces. But Krishna will definitely protect the bhakti of that devotee. So that is more important anyway. And that devotee, that kind of devotee, enters into the spiritual world. Text 57. Chetha sarva karmani mai sanyasya matparaha buddhi yogam upashitya machittaha satatam bhava. In all activities, just depend upon me and work always under my protection. In such devotional service, be fully conscious of me. So this is a conclusion chapter. So he is clearly telling what the conclusion is. When one acts in Krishna consciousness, he does not act as a master of the world. Just like a servant, one should act fully under the direction of the Supreme Lord. A servant has no individual independence. He acts only on the order of the master. A servant acting on behalf of the Supreme Master is unaffected by profit and loss. He simply discharges his duty faithfully in terms of the order of the Lord. So for a servant, his life is actually very easy if we really become a servant of the Lord. The Lord says, do this, so a servant does. It's Lord's headache, is a master's headache to provide for the servants food and clothing and shelter and everything else. It's not servant's headache anymore. So that's why a devotee never wants to become the Lord. The karmis and the nirakaris, they say, oh, we all are God. We have forgotten we are God, but we all are God. But devotee never says, I want to be God. God has so many headaches, so many people to look after. As a servant, my job is only to serve God. That's it, only one person. It's so easy to be a servant. Now, one may argue that Arjuna was acting under the personal direction of Krishna, but when Krishna is not present, how should one act? If one acts according to the direction of Krishna in this book, directions he has given, as well as under the guidance of the representative of Krishna, then the result will be the same. The Sanskrit word matpara is very important in this verse. It indicates that one has no goal in life save and except acting in Krishna consciousness, just to satisfy Krishna. And while working in that way, one should think of Krishna only. I have been appointed to discharge this particular duty by Krishna. While acting in such a way, one naturally has to think of Krishna. This is perfect Krishna consciousness. So this, I have been appointed to discharge this particular duty as a husband, as a wife, as a son, as a daughter, as a manager in the company, as a servant in the company, as whatever material duty we have. We have to always think that I have been appointed to discharge this particular duty by Krishna. While acting in such a way, one naturally has to think of Krishna. This is perfect Krishna consciousness. One should, however, note that after doing something whimsically, he should not offer the result to the Supreme Lord. That sort of duty is not in devotional service of Krishna consciousness. One should act according to the order of Krishna. This is a very important point. That order of Krishna comes through the disciplic succession from the bona fide spiritual master. Therefore, the spiritual master's order should be taken as a prime duty of life. If one gets a bona fide spiritual master and acts according to his direction, then one's perfection of life in Krishna consciousness is guaranteed. So this is the crux of the whole instructions, whole Bhagavad Gita. He says, just surrender unto me. Just follow my orders. Just depend upon me and work under my protection. Beautiful shlokas. Text 58. Mat chitta sarva durgani mat prasadat tarishyasi atha chetvam ahankara na shoshyasi vinangshasi. If you become conscious of me, you will pass over all the obstacles of conditioned life by my grace. If, however, you do not work in such consciousness, but act through false ego, not hearing me, you will be lost. Again, very simple and straightforward instruction. You become conscious of me. Once you serve me, engage in devotional service, you will pass over all the obstacles by my grace. Now, passing over obstacles, the timing could be different depending upon our surrender. But if we don't, then we are lost in the material world. A person in full Krishna consciousness is not unduly anxious about executing the duties of his existence. The foolish cannot understand this great freedom from all anxiety. For one who acts in Krishna consciousness, Lord Krishna becomes the most intimate friend. He always looks after his friend's comfort, and he gives himself to his friend, who is so devotedly engaged working 24 hours a day to please the Lord. Therefore, no one should be carried away by the false ego of the bodily concept of life. So no one should be carried away by the false ego. That means thinking I'm this body. Just come to the level of I'm a spirit soul. I'm a servant of Krishna. But even when we are engaged in devotion service, it's very, very difficult to get rid of this bodily concept of life. One should not falsely think himself independent of the laws of the material nature or free to act. He's already under strict material laws. But as soon as he acts in Krishna consciousness, he is liberated, free from the material perplexities. One should note very carefully that one who is not active in Krishna consciousness is losing himself in the material whirlpool, in the ocean of birth and death. No conditioned soul actually knows what is to be done and what is not to be done. But a person who acts in Krishna consciousness is free to act because everything is prompted by Krishna from within and confirmed by the spiritual master. But this acting on the prompt by Krishna from within, it is subjective to our degree of surrender and purity of consciousness. But if it can be confirmed by the spiritual master, a bona fide spiritual master, then we are free to act in that way. And about a person who's surrendered, a person in full Krishna consciousness is not unduly anxious about executing the duties of his existence. Krishna takes full charge of such a devotee who is fully surrendered. Just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he was in Navadvip, he used to carry out his Sankirtan at the house of Srivas Acharya. I think I've told this story before. Now, Srivas Acharya were four brothers, Srivas, Sripati, Sridindri, and Sri Ram. And they were all married, they had kids, big four families living together in one house. And Mahaprabhu would do kirtan in his angan every day, every evening, and whole night the kirtan would go on. So once Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked Srivas Thakur that you have such a big family, you are a grihastha, you're not a brahmachari or sannyasi, but I don't see you working. I don't see you having a job or a business. How do you maintain your family? And Srivas Acharya, he just clapped 3 times. Mahaprabhu said, I'm asking you a serious question, and what you're doing, you're just clapping 3 times. How do you maintain your family? And Srivas Thakur again clapped 3 times. Mahaprabhu said, okay, what's the meaning of these 3 claps? Srivas Thakur said, 3 claps means we are fully surrendered to you. So if you don't send anything for our maintenance, we fast 1 day. And 2 claps means we fast 2 days. 3 claps means we fast 3 days. And if we still don't send something for maintenance, we'll all jump in Ganges and drown in the Ganges, killing ourselves. Now Mahaprabhu said, you have so much of faith in me. Because of this, even if a day comes when Lakshmi ji, although today here is Dhanteras in America, and everybody's praying to Lakshmi ji to get more and more money. And Mahaprabhu said, even if Lakshmi ji becomes a beggar and she has to go beg door to door, there'll never be any scarcity in your household. If Mahaprabhu is giving that kind of assurance, what else one wants? So all the anxieties of a person for his material existence go away as soon as he surrenders. In fact, Krishna is taking care of so many living entities who are not even surrendered, but they don't know anything, like animals, birds, plants, insects, reptiles, fishes. They cannot act any other way. So Krishna is taking care of all of them. He's providing for everybody. For human beings also, he provides. But because he has given us some minute independence, then we misuse that independence. And then we go away from Krishna. Krishna still provides for us and maintains us. But he doesn't give us the protection that we should be getting, that a devotee gets. So I think I'll stop here and leave some time for questions and answers. Any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Danvatna.
Dandavat.
Tell me for my voice.
That's okay.
No, Prabhuji, continuing from in fact something that I asked day before yesterday. Prabhuji, in fact, I was discussing with my colleagues, and fascinatingly enough, in fact, this word slave somehow popped up. Then it struck me that we talk of being servant of Krishna, and then we were discussing about slave, slave, slave. So then it prodded me further, in fact. Should we not be further a slave, because a servant at times takes that independence and acts in their own way? So I was wondering, but then a slave will not act their own way, so the Lord might
Yeah.
feel monotonous and in fact might not enjoy the relationships. So was I right, Prabhuji, that in fact servant, therefore Srila Prabhupada has mentioned that it's servant and servant is better.
What do you mean might not enjoy the relationship?
They say in fact a slave will just be following the straight through orders. For example, यार ये मंत्र पढ़ प्रणाम मंत्र पढ़ना तो प्रणाम मंत्र या करे पढ़ लिया भगवान जी के सामने and then
Nah. Devotional
that will be
service means
monotonous.
with love, not force.
Yeah.
With love, with his full consciousness, with full independence, he has become a slave, not out of force.
Hmm.
There's a huge difference.
True, Prabhuji.
And not only devotee serves Krishna, Krishna serves his devotees. He became chariot driver of Arjuna. Isn't that service?
Yes, Prabhuji.
And this chariot driver, we just see a charioteer, but as a chariot driver, he had to take care of the horses after the war was over. Every evening he had to massage the horses, he had to feed the horses, he had to make them drink some water, get some water for them, and he had to make sure the chariot is okay, nothing is broken, and if something is broken, he had to fix it. It's not like he had some servants. As a charioteer, he had to do all the duties. And also, when after Bhagavad Gita, the war started, and Krishna is a charioteer. Krishna sits behind the horses, and Arjun is standing behind him on the chariot. And Arjun's both hands are busy with the bow and arrow. And if he had to tell Krishna, and the war is going on, horses are there, elephants are there, so many warriors are there, and so much of commotion is there, so much of sound is there. And if Arjun had to tell Krishna whether to go left or right, go forward, stop, slow down, How would you tell him? You know how he used to tell it?
by his feet, Prabhuji.
By his feet. He would touch Krishna by his foot, whether on the left or right, whatever signs they had made. And Krishna was enjoying this service. He wasn't doing it as a slave. It was out of love for his devotee. So this slave and master, it's out of love. It's nothing else.
True, Prabhuji, that love factor has to be there, or else it becomes very monotonous. करना है
Yeah,
ये सुबह सुबह.
yeah. तो वो because we are at that level ना कि अभी जबरदस्ती करना.
Thank you so.
Just like a mother when she takes care of a child, and she is washing the potty and the urine of the child, is it servant or is it love? Is it service or is it love?
Pure love, Prabhuji.
So just imagine how much love in the spiritual world would.
Very true, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for clarifying. Prabhuji, I have one more question, and the question is, in fact, a real life example dilemma that I faced. In fact, for example, and I probably really need your help to sort this out because I oftentimes come across this dilemma. For example, yesterday, in fact, it was the kids' holiday, and we thought for next 2 3 days holiday, so let us go and do the parikrama, so that whatever little tiredness the kids have will go away in these 2 3 days. And at
Mm-hmm.
the same time, in fact, I had somehow, in fact, after the planning was done, everything, a very important meeting popped up in office. Though I'd made all the plannings and preparations and everything, in fact, but then eventually I decided, नहीं यार परिक्रमा में जाना है तो जाना है. So I was in a dilemma for a very, very long time, whether in fact that was my duty, should I not do that? Parikrama baad mein kar le. Then I said, yeah, please. In fact, eventually I had to tell people was, uh, in fact, I had already planned for it. I've already given the data, so you guys carry on. I'll not be able to attend today's meeting. So was I right,
Mm-hmm.
Prabhuji? Because I neglected my duty. Eventually, that is a duty given to me by Krishna himself, so that I can take care of the family and every need vis-a-vis the urge
See
or the.
that part you have to see yourself. Because if I say it was right, then every weekend you will do that. I don't know. If I say it was wrong, then you will. Now that you have to see practically, whatever is practical. You have to see. Uh,
But how do we differentiate, Prabhuji? Though in fact we continuously pray to Krishna, Krishna, please help us, help us, help us. पर वो दिल में वो लस्ट रहता ही कि नहीं यार परिक्रमा कर ले इसका मजा ही कुछ और है. And because of that kind of, what should I say, that greed or
that's
that
okay.
lust or whatever I say.
That's okay. Whatever Girraji wants. I cannot
Kindly
comment on
guide me,
that.
Prabhuji. Kindly guide me because
I
such
cannot.
situations like there are lots of dilemma.
See, what I feel is Giraji made you do the whole parikrama, complete the parikrama without any problem. So maybe it was his will that you come there. Otherwise, you wouldn't have gone, wouldn't have been able to even go. So it's okay. But just you have to be practical, be careful. That's
And when we come across such dilemma, Prabhuji, what's the best way forward? One is to, yes, surrender to Krishna and pray, please clarify for me. But knowing we are so materially contaminated, we'll always tend to bend towards what we enjoy more. In fact, what is the best way forward in such dilemma going forward, Prabhuji? Kindly guide
well,
us.
some people keep to perchi at home, yes or no, and just throw it in front of Krishna. And then they pick up one Persian, and whatever it says, yes or no, they just follow. Some devotees do that.
One of my Buddhist friend does it, Prabhuji. I know. In fact, he follows Buddhism, though he is not born.
प्रभु जी मैं भी बहुत करती हूँ पर्ची वाला.
Prabhuji, even I also
That's
do when
okay.
I'm confused.
That's okay.
हम पापा के confused रहते हैं.
और जब अपनी मनपसंद का आंसर नहीं आता, then we say, okay, best of 3 we'll do 2 out of 3.
नहीं yes or no. अरे तो बच्चे ही परेशान हो गए अब क्या है.
That's okay, whatever works, I guess.
तो ये पर्ची वाला तो मैं बहुत करती हूँ. प्रमोद प्रभु जी you should also do that.
दोनों पर्ची में यस लिख कर रख दूंगा मैं.
ना honestly
ना, वो चीटिंग, वो
फिर तो
सबसे बड़ा
आपने
चीटर है.
चीटिंग
वो
कर
आप-
लिया ना.
I know, फिर आप खुद फंस जाओगे और कंफ्यूज हो जाओगे.
हाँ, he is biggest cheater.
हाँ ऑनेस्टली करो सही आंसर मिलता है. ट्राई करना.
इतना मटेरियली कंटामिनेटेड हूँ क्या? ऑलवेज टेंड टू डू यस.
तो वो भगवान को डिसाइड करने दो ना कि आपको यस देंगे या नो देंगे.
And honestly follow करो. If it's no तो then no. It's yes तो yes. You know that way.
चलो, I guess we can.
I think that's a good solution. Thank you so much, Prabhuji and Mataji.
Okay, thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Jai
Krishna
Srila
Prabhu.
Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, Jai Srila Prabhupada.